Hey, what's up, guys? Welcome to Earwax. It's Colin. And a few weeks ago, I dropped a review for the most recent Aesop Rock album, Black Hole Superette. And you guys absolutely loved that review. So much so that I got some amazing comments like, when you don't know how to critique albums but want to sound like you do, say it's bloated. The fuck out of here. Nah, homie, you the one that's bloated. You could have just not made a video, we would never have missed anything. LOL, this review is dumb as fuck. Album is dope as fuck, you're just an annoying edgelord with shit for ears apparently. So yeah, since you guys loved that review so much, let's do it all again. So today we're going to be doing my ranking of all of Aesop Rock's solo albums, and let's just let the love pour in. So first off, I feel like I gotta say, I love Aesop Rock. He's my favorite rapper of all time. I think he's untouched. I think he's hands down the greatest white rapper of all time. I think he deserves to be in the conversation as just one of the greatest rappers of all time, period. But I also understand he's very much an acquired taste. And I know that from the sheer number of people I've tried to get into Aesop Rock. Now, if you are, somewhat familiar with his discography, it's definitely worth checking out all of his stuff. And to clarify, I'm only going to be going into what are his, what I consider his 10 like solo albums. So I'm not going into any EPs. I'm not going into any collaboration projects, and I'm not going to be going into some that I feel like could be considered a solo album. For example, I think Wikipedia has Garbology listed under his like discography, but since he does give Blockhead like a title credit for that collaboration album, which is fair because he did all the production, I'm not going to count that in this as well. I will do another video at some point probably of all his collaboration just because I'm a masochist apparently, and I also just love his music. But yeah, then I'll cover like all the Hail Mary Mallon stuff, the Lice stuff, Malibu Ken, the Garbology album, as well as like the Weatherman album, and maybe I'll throw in the EPs there as well, just for, sake of continuity. But for this, I'm just going through what I consider are his 10 studio albums. Now, the one caveat I'll say to that is going to be his first album, which is Music for Earthworms. Technically, this is just a collection of like demos, but because he like presented it as an album and you can get it like as a collection on CD, I am going to be including it in this list. But yeah, other than that, it's pretty much going to be a straight like studio output. So before we get into the list, if you could please like, comment, subscribe, all that stuff helps me out a lot. Thanks so much for watching. And let's get into number 10. And starting off with number 10 is going to be Music for Earthworms. So just for the sake of like how hard this album actually is to listen to, it definitely gets demoted a few points. There's a really good copy or like recording of it up on YouTube, but I think it's only been pressed on, or not pressed, but only been released on CD a handful of times. Never gotten a vinyl pressing, not available on any streaming services. So yeah, unless you got like an early demo or a CD of it, it's not an easy one to actually listen to outside of like the YouTube bootleg. That being said, like it's still a good album. Like I still genuinely enjoy listening to this one. There's some rough spots here and there, and you can definitely tell like how DIY it was, which is not inherently a bad thing, but it definitely like isn't quite as polished or exciting to like pick apart as some of his other stuff. But there's still some great tracks on this album. Specifically, Abandon All Hope, Wake Up Call, and Plastic Soldiers are my 3 favorite songs on the album. And yeah, this may not be at the bottom of everyone's list. And I just re-listened to it a few days ago in preparation for this. And it's still a great album. Like I said, I still genuinely enjoy listening to it. But I do think it belongs on the bottom of his tier list compared to the rest of his work. Coming in at number 9 is going to be Bazooka Tooth. Now, this might be a bit controversial for some people. I know there's some people out there that absolutely love this album. And that's a cool thing about Aesop Rock is I don't think that like any person's list is wrong. Like his work is so subjective to like what you're looking for at that time. And I think like any given day, like this list could change for some people. I know there's times that this list changes for me. My top 3 are pretty much like always set in stone, but outside of that, there's like the bottom chunk of these, or like middle to bottom, could move around at any given year depending on like how I'm feeling. But right now, Bazooka Tooth is at number 9. It's I think easily his longest album, or it feels like his longest album. It's kind of all over the place. So you've got some of the more like pointed, driven lyrical content of his earlier work with some of the more like toned down production. And then you can see some glimpses of some of the more like goofy and chaotic stuff he would do on the couple of albums after this, at least the one album after this. And yeah, it's not, again, not a bad album. Like I genuinely do enjoy listening to this album, but it's very all over the place. It feels like it's not quite sure what it wants to be, and it's definitely not the most accessible album for someone who's like not a diehard Aesop Rock fan. But again, I know people that put this in their like top two or three, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that because it is a really fun album. It just again depends on what you're personally looking for in an Aesop Rock project at any given time. I do really consider this album the transition album from like the early chunk of his career to what I consider his like more modern era. And by modern, I mean post None Shall Pass. So we'll call it the back 2/3 of his catalog. But yeah, still genuinely enjoy this. My favorite songs are going to be Mars Attacks, Super Fluke, and Limelighters Flunkadelic. But again, there's fun tracks scattered throughout this album. And coming in at number 8 is going to be the one that everybody loves, Black Hole Superette. So again, not a bad album. Like I do genuinely enjoy this album. I think a lot of people that watched that review didn't watch it all the way through because there are some like generally positive moments that I pull out of it. I did feel like it was just a little bit long and there was a couple tracks on there that didn't necessarily need to be on there. And it felt so similar to me, just like stylistically and thematically to ITS, that I think it was just like my own personal disappointment that didn't, make me love it a little bit more when I was looking for something either new or refreshing or exciting. And yeah, I still stand by my review. I will say I've listened to it over a dozen times at this point, and not much has changed about my opinion of it, the exception of a couple things. So the last track of Unbelievable Shenanigans has definitely grown on me a lot more, especially as I started listening to it like on headphones and could hear some of the more nuances in the production. I think I definitely graded that song a little bit too low. But like outside of that, I still feel pretty solid about a lot of my comments on some of the songs that I didn't feel like needed to be on that album. Specifically like Costco, I could not get into. And I know it's like one of the biggest tracks that people are absolutely loving it. But like EWR, Terminal A, Gate 20, it fell really flat for me. But other than that, like again, a couple other ones here and there, if they just been cut out, I probably would have ranked this in like my top 5. But it just, again, it depends. It depends on how you're feeling at any given time. I'm glad so many people are loving this album. And don't get me wrong, I do still genuinely enjoy it. My favorite songs are still going to be Secret Knock, Send Help, and I Sold Here, which is like a killer 80s inspired track. So yeah, still Aesop Rock, still better than the majority of what's out there. But if you go look at the comments for that video, a lot of people disagreed with me. But we're having fun. I wouldn't be on the internet giving my opinion if I didn't expect some of that coming my way. Then after that, at number 7, we have Integrated Text Solution. So I, again, do not dislike this album. I just like it slightly less than all of the albums that are coming after it in this ranking. It took me a few listens to really get behind. Actually, ITS was the first album of his in a long time that I didn't pre-order. I like had heard a couple snippets here and there, and I was like didn't really have the money to just drop on a pre-order at that time. So I was like, well, I'm gonna wait for it to come out, give it a few listens, and then I'll order it at that time if it's something that I'm really feeling. And by probably like my 3rd or 4th listen is when I actually order the vinyl. But yeah, I did end up really enjoying it. I love the kind of trippy, funky instrumentals you have throughout the majority of it. The lyricism was on point, especially as someone who like kind of grew up in Silicon Valley, or at least spent like high school through like my late 20s, mid 20s there, high school, mid 20s there. And yeah, it's still super fun. I do think there's a couple songs that do kind of blend together a little bit, which might be keeping it out of the top for me. Also, at this point in the listing, all the albums that are coming after this, for the most part, are ones that I've been listening to for years, and I've just grown to love and appreciate so much more. There's a good chance that either ITS or Black Hole could end up higher at some point. They're just not there right now. My favorite songs here are going to be Salt and Peppa Squid, Pigeonometry, and By the River. Then at number 6 is going to be Skeleton. Now, I was actually looking at a couple like Reddit posts about like people ranking their Aesop albums just to kind of see what everyone else's opinions were. And I was surprised to see how high a lot of people put this album on their list. Now, again, not a bad album by any means. It's just barely not in the top 5 for me. I still love listening to it. I just pulled it from a Rhymesayers mystery pack recently, and I was pretty stoked about that. Like, it's got some great tracks. Thematically, it's a very heavy, dark album with a lot of the themes talking about death and depression, but in more of kind of like a chaotic way. And yeah, I still genuinely enjoy listening to it. I think it was really just when it came out that maybe hurt it in my eyes, because it came out after what I consider one of his best albums, and I don't feel like it lived quite up to the success for me of None Shall Pass. But yeah, I still love this album. I still love putting it on. And yeah, just again, barely didn't make the top 5, but that's only because I love the next 5 albums just that much more. My favorite songs from Skeleton are going to be ZZZ Top, Zero Dark 30, and Crows 2. And now we're into the top 5. So it's funny, coming in at number 5 is going to be Float. And I go back and forth between Float being like one of my favorite albums and being one of the ones that I like don't have an interest in listening to quite frequently. And there's a couple reasons for that. Number one, Float is the first Aesop Rock album I ever heard. It's like the first one I bought on CD. A buddy of mine recommended it to me. He was like, yo, you got to check this guy out. Went to my local, like, God, what was it? Rasputin's back in the day. Found this in the CD, like hip hop CD bin. And yeah, this like the album that got me into Aesop Rock, really. It was like the first album of his that I listened to. And I played it a lot. Like I played it over and over and over again. And I think I've played it so much at this point that there's like other albums in his discography that I would almost rather listen to, which is why sometimes I rank it low. But then when I do throw it back on after a period of like a year or two, like I just listened to it yesterday for the first time in about a year, and I was just reminded how good it actually is. Now, second album, first like real studio album, definitely still a little rough. Like you can hear some of like just his delivery and his flow is not quite what it would evolve into. Some of the production on this album, which is mostly split, I believe, between him and Blockhead and one other producer who I can't remember right now. Um, it's good. It's a little all over the place, a little chaotic. Rhythmically, there's a couple songs that kind of throw you through a bit of a loop, which is one of the things that I occasionally love about it, and one of the things that I'm just like not in the mood for, if that makes the most sense. But this album will always have a very special place in my heart. I was very excited to pick it up on vinyl when they did the repress a few years ago. I got, I think, like the green version. But anyway, it's still like one of my favorite albums of his for sure. Only at number 5 because I just happen to listen to the next 4 a little bit more. My favorite songs off this album are going to be the title track and Float, Big Bang, and Drawbridge. Coming in at number 4 is the best of what I consider like his early era in Labor Days. Now, I love Labor Days. I know this is like a lot of people usually have this in like the top 2, and I think that's perfectly fair. There are days where like I want to listen to this album more than anything else in his discography, and it's honestly some of the best production on any album. Even though it is a little like rough around the edges, it's a little bit more DIY still at this point than compared to some of like the stuff he would do later on. But yeah, the bars on this album are insane. The lyricism is some of the best he's ever done. I absolutely love this album so much. The concept behind it, just like the working class kind of like, fight songs that he's compiled together that also somehow are just like scathing commentaries on society in general. It's just so well done. Yeah, I think this is not just like one of his best albums, but like this should be considered one of the best albums of this like decade, the decade it came out, so like the 2000s, just across the board. And if for whatever reason somehow you're an Aesop Rock fan and you haven't listened to Labor Days, like you need to. It's absolutely incredible. My favorite songs of this album are going to be Daylight, 9 to 5ers Anthem, and One Brick. Coming in at number 3 is going to be Spirit World Field Guide. Now, I gotta say, the one thing that I was surprised about from my review of Black Hole Super Red was not all the hate comments, which I was kind of expecting. I mean, it's the internet for you, and I know Aesop Rock fans can be extremely passionate, but it was the number of people that like preferred it significantly over this album, which again is fine. Like one of the comments that I got specifically was talking about how they didn't really register or resonate with Spirit World Field Guide so much because they weren't doing drugs in like South Asia, Southeast Asia, which is fair. Like it's a trippy album. It's the one of the wildest concepts that he's done. The videos that went along with it just kind of painted this otherworldly like narrative that was going throughout it. And even though he's dealt with like, you know, abstract concepts and death and, psychedelics and drug use, like all that stuff before is like, he's touched on in his music. He just went full in, and like this was probably the most conceptual of all of his concept albums. And I think specifically, like a couple of the comments I got, or one of the reasons they didn't love this album is because it was broken up by a lot of like intermissions, and a lot of the songs were very like instrumental driven, and there weren't as many like full blown tracks. But that's honestly one of the reasons that I love it. Like this is probably the most unique album to me in his discography because of that reason. And I absolutely love it. Like this is one of those albums that even though when he first came out with it, he was like, this is a field guide. You're supposed to be able to listen to parts here and there and take what you need. I love listening to this album front to back. And the funny thing is one of my biggest complaints about Black Hole Super Red was I felt like it was a little bloated, it was a little stuffed, like there was a couple tracks that could have been cut. And this album is almost just as long, but I don't feel that way here because I feel like every single part of this is necessary for this journey that you're going on. But if you're not like into trippy shit or psychedelics in any sort of way, like I don't really do them anymore, but even back when I did, I would have loved to put this album on. But even now, as someone who doesn't really do that anymore, I still love psychedelic music, and this being like a full blown like kind of almost borderline psychedelic journey in the form of an Aesop Rock album. I think just it hit so personally for me is something that I was like really wanting in his discography that it's going to be really hard for anything to ever bump this out of the top three. My favorite songs from this album, if I had to narrow them down, would be The Gates, Pizza Alley, and Sleeper Car. And that just leaves the top two, and my second favorite Aesop Rock album of all time is going to be The Impossible Kid. So when this first came out, I was not quite as into Skeleton as I am now, and I was really hoping with his next release, he was going to do something that just absolutely blew me away, and that is 100% what he did with The Impossible Kid. I mean, the lyrical content on this album, I think, is some of the most like personal and deep stuff he's ever written, while also still being fun and goofy and silly at parts. I mean, the song Kirby about his cat is just absolutely incredible. The production on this album, I think, is probably the best that he's ever done. Even though this isn't like my number one, I do think the production on this album just objectively is absolutely insane. And yeah, the flow of this, the abstract concept of this, the way that each song just sets up the next one, like it's absolutely incredible. I talked to, or not talked to, but a lot of my friends that are also Aesop Rock fans put this one pretty highly as well. And I haven't met a ton of people that don't consider this in their top five, but I'm sure that they're out there because again, this is a very subjective artist, and I think that like any possible individual could have certain albums listed a certain way. My three favorite songs of this album are going to be Rings, Kirby, and Dorks. And then if I hadn't been hyping it up all video, and you don't know by now, my all-time favorite Aesop Rock album is None Shall Pass. So None Shall Pass, similar to Float, has a very like near and dear place in my heart. It was the second CD I ever bought, so I discovered Float like a year or so before None Shall Pass came out. So that's right around the time when I got into him. And then when None Shall Pass came out, I immediately went out and bought it. And I think I played that CD front to back at least 30 times within the first like month and a half that it was out. I could not get enough. The production on this album is, again, I think only second to The Impossible Kid. It is fun, it's weird, it's goofy, it's silly. The track list on this is some of his most chaotic, but it also like works super well. You've got a song about fucking pirates for God's sake. But yeah, I love this album so much. If you want to hear me gush more about it, go listen to my or go watch my top 5 hip hop albums of all time video. This is my number one. Spoiler alert. But yeah, I think the songs None Shall Pass and Coffee, two of the catchiest and most accessible songs he's ever done. Which, yeah, I mean, maybe it says something about me that like those are the ones that I resonate with the most. But those are the songs that really hooked me and made me a lifelong fan. But like Catacomb Kids, absolutely incredible. Bring Back Pluto, like I love just the goofiness of this album, and like it's not afraid to get like serious and dark when it wants to, especially on songs like None Shall Pass. But like I just love the compilation, just everything about this album. I think this is a perfect album in my opinion. I think a few of his albums are flirting with that, but this is a absolutely perfect 10 out of 10 or A plus going by my ranking system. And yeah, I don't think I'll ever have this album be dethroned for me. So there we go. That's my current ranking of Aesop Rock solo albums. I'm sure you guys are going to let me know back down in the comments how much of a moron I am, how my list is wrong. That's totally fine because all of that is discourse. It keeps us talking. It keeps us, having conversations about music, which is the whole point of my channel. So all of you that are watching, even if you absolutely hate me and send me more mean comments, I love you all. Thank you so much for being here. And as always, I will talk to y'all later. Peace.